Basketball fans can look forward to a 2-week festival in June. That's when NBA stars will be around. There will also be a tournament for top youth talents from around the region, as well as clinics and community programs. It is the first part of a multi-year deal to bring NBA events to Singapore and also part of the country's sports tourism plans. Alif Amsyar reports.
It's one of the most popular sports among youths in Singapore. During these mid-year school holidays, fans can enjoy all things basketball, including a festival at the Kallang Alive precinct.
When the chance came to partner the NBA to bring something here, we worked very hard at it. And of course, this adds to what we've done together in partnership with Tourism Board to bring world-class sporting events to Singapore, and also then welcome not just for our local residents community to participate, but also visitors from the region who love basketball to come.
Two-time NBA champion Chris Bosh was in attendance during the announcement. Come June, basketball fans will also get the chance to meet some of their favourite stars.
At the moment, we are still talking to a few of them. I think a lot of the times it's going to depend on their schedules in the summer. So the season is still going on, so we'll have to wait it out. But we are definitely talking to both current and retired players. Yeah, both from the NBA and also the WNBA.
There will also be a 5-day tournament called the NBA Rising Stars Invitational. This will see promising young talents from 10 countries and territories around the region in action.
If you look at high school tournaments or secondary school or JC tournaments in Singapore, they get to play with their peers in Singapore. To upskill this, we think that it is important to have even more playing time, even more competing time. So by inviting their peers from around the region, they are able to see how other countries and territories play, what their level is, how can they upskill to that level.
There will also be community programs, not just in Kallang, but around the island. More event details will be announced soon.
And for more on sports tourism in Singapore, we have Nicholas Fang here. He is the Managing Director of Novastella Consulting. He is also a former national fencer. Mr. Fang, great to see you here in the studio.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about that multi-year deal has been signed to bring in NBA events to Singapore. Why is this significant to Singapore? Why does basketball make sense for us?
So basketball is as a global sport, something that's really exciting, is very dynamic, and the NBA product is one of the slickest products around. There's been surveys done that speak to Singaporeans, and I think some of the figures come up to show about 80% of Singaporeans say that they are interested in consuming a basketball product, and NBA is, sort of the global best of the best. So having a multi-year deal to bring in events, I think is a great step forward to boosting the stable of sports events that we have in Singapore that are global, that are high profile, that have a broad appeal across demographics, and potentially will draw people from other countries to come here as a destination to consume the product as well. I know this first product is a high school product, so you'll see predominantly young kids playing basketball. But the thing about the NBA is that they will bring their top stars, they will bring legends, they will bring maybe some of the cheer teams from the NBA and the mascots. We promoted 2 NBA events, 3-on-3 events in 2013 and 2014 here in Singapore. And it was, super exciting because you got to see some of the stars. They're not really playing, but they come to make appearances. And it builds up this buzz and hype around the sport. And hopefully it really elevates Singapore's status as a sports tourism destination.
You mentioned high school product, but I guess there's still interest there, isn't it? What other NBA events would you or basketball fans would like to see in general in the coming years?
So I think, yes, for sure, the high school kids that are coming here are going to be the best in their class in the different countries. So it will be high level. But I think what fans would really like to see is actual NBA teams coming and playing here. The NBA has a product called the Global Games. It's sort of a pre-season exhibition match played between actual NBA teams. And they've moved around Asia to a few different markets, but never made it to Singapore. And my personal dream, and I've been trying to build, some momentum around bringing that here. But an issue with that is the right size stadium for that event. The facilities we have in Singapore are either a little bit small or a little bit too big. But we have new stadiums that are being built. So I think maybe in a few years' time, potentially we could pitch for something like that.
We'll talk about facilities and infrastructure a little bit more later in this discussion. But I also want to look at the existing curation of sporting events that we have. Formula One Singapore Grand Prix, Singapore Rugby Sevens, and we also have golf tournaments. What else do you think we can add on to the list?
I think the more the merrier when it comes to a range of sports events, especially if we can find the right funding. And I think definitely it shouldn't be the government itself footing the bill. It would be great if we could see more corporate sponsorship. But a lot of that comes by building a broader and more organic but also broad-based sports culture in Singapore, where people would actually pay money to consume sports as a form of entertainment. So whether it's a table tennis event, a tennis event that we had recently in Singapore as well, that saw some world-ranked players coming here, I think the more the merrier. And if we have this deal with the NBA, hopefully we see from the high school games building up to maybe a global game somewhere down the road.
All right, we're off to a good start, building the momentum there. What is the impact on tourism when Singapore hosts major sporting events like these?
So if you look at something like the F1, which is a global pinnacle for a major sports event, I think the figures from the MTI here in Singapore show that we've accrued maybe $2 billion in incremental tourism receipts since the start of the event in 2008. If you were to host a World Championships, we have the World Aquatics Championships coming to Singapore later this year. We're looking at sort of revenue in potentially the tens of, or hopefully the hundreds of millions of dollars. When we look at events like this NBA event, let's use that as an example, you've got obviously the players, but then potentially their families, their parents, their coaches, and maybe some of their supporters coming here. So there is a multiplier effect. This is small scale with 10 territories and countries, teams coming here. But hopefully we can build up to the stage where if we have, for example, the professional NBA players coming here, I guarantee you, fans from all around Southeast Asia, Philippines is a huge basketball mad country, Thailand, Indonesia, we'll see these people coming here. And when they come here, they spend on hotels, F&B, entertainment, nightlife, and it enhances the reputation of Singapore, not just as a sports destination, but as a tourism destination. So very powerful multiplier effect.
What kind of numbers can we look at? I mean, and which sports have the ability to draw, huge crowd of spectators or fans from overseas?
I think the ones that we've seen most popular globally are things like F1, which is one of the reasons why Singapore made a big push for that. Obviously, anything that involves the EPL, football, would be super popular with a broad base of audience. Basketball, I think you will see definitely fans traveling. When I went to watch global games in countries like Japan and China, you'll see people from all over the region converging there as well. And we're talking about, if you take a Taylor Swift concert as an example of something that could generate revenue, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars of impact when it comes to economic value and tourism receipts. So I think, I'm really glad that Singapore is starting to look global when it comes to our top sports events. Great if Singapore teams at some point could start to perform, and maybe we see Singapore sports stars, competing in the top leagues in the world. And maybe these events are also just a catalyst to get more young people interested and excited about sports and saying, maybe I want to do that as a career as well. So it's not just money. There's an issue of sports culture and potentially impact on our sports people as well.
Sounds very promising. Earlier we were talking about facilities and infrastructure. Do we have enough to attract, the big name sports events, whether it's NBA or football or golf internationals? What else can we look at to beef up our capabilities in those areas?
I think it's always a challenge in Landscarce Singapore to say we're going to dedicate a lot of land for sports activities. We know the golf courses are becoming smaller and smaller in number. A lot of my golfing friends are very upset about that. But we have in the Kallang Sports Hub a wonderful stadium. We are redoing the indoor stadium. We will see RWS and MBS having new stadiums and spaces for potentially indoor sports as well. So I think we are building enough hardware that can accommodate some of these global events. For example, the NBA Global Games. I think in a couple of years' time, we might be able to make a credible bid for it. But I think it extends a lot more than hardware. If you have a space and you have the seating, you need to fill the seats with sports fans. And I think we really want to see more Singaporeans transitioning to become sports fans, not just of the national team, not only supporting it when Singaporean athletes are doing well or competing, but to really appreciate sports as an entertainment product, to say that instead of just watching us, going to the movies or going shopping, I don't mind to spend a bit of money on a sports product and consume that as well. NBA doesn't have a store in Singapore to sell merchandise because I think there's some concern about whether people will really go out and buy a lot of it. So we want to build some of the momentum, and having exciting high-profile events is definitely a good step towards that.
So hardware and software as we build our brand as a sports tourism destination. Give us a wish list, Nick, or Mr. Fang rather, of the major sporting events you would like to see take place here in Singapore.
Well, I'm a Man United fan, so if Man United come here, even though they're not doing so good, I'm also a LA Lakers fan, so, if the Lakers team could come here and play in the global games, again, I have said it a few times already, but I would love to see a high-level NBA game coming to Singapore and really thrilling the fans here. But as we go along, I think we should look at new emerging sports as well. Things like pickleball, padel are becoming very popular among a mass participation audience. If we could bring in something high profile like that, it would also elevate, I think, the interest in a broader audience across a broad base of sports. And maybe Singapore can move towards being a real sporting nation in that way.
Great. Mr. Fang, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming in. That was Nicholas Fang from Novastella Consulting.